HoneyBunTv. Spend this money, gorgeous, all on you, girl.
Honey Buns, and what is up? Today we are going to be making a yarn sweater. So let's get into focus and get into motion on what you need. I use approximately 4 to 5 balls of this pretty rainbow yarn. Now you can go to Joann's and get this yarn. They had a good sale cooking, that's why I got 4 to 5. But you can also go to Walmart and get the same one. And I used approximately 1 yard of fleece fabric for this. Now I'm just gonna make a disclaimer: you don't have to make yours a long sleeve. You can make yours sleeveless, you can make yours shorter than that, but I just did a long sleeve. So now what we are going to do, I'm going to show you with only 1 ball of yarn that I use, because 4 to 5 would kind of be dragging it, and I'm just literally un-yarning the yarn ball. I'm unyarning the yarn ball. And another method or way that I found easier when I got to like the second or third one is literally kind of pulling it apart, but taking your time and pulling it apart, because you don't want to pull it apart and now you got tangles and got to untangle it every time you're wrapping it and trying to get it through. So this is just also the method that worked for me, but you can still do the first method that I literally showed you. Now this is just the aftermath of ball number 1, and I'm just going to measure down how long do I want my fringe, and that may change for you as you put it on your jacket and you're like, or your sweater, and you're like, I don't want it that long, let me cut it. And that's perfectly fine. So I went down approximately 10 inches, and once I found my point, I literally just rolled it over just like that. And take your time doing this. I got faster as I increased the balls, but take your time doing this because it can get kind of messy. Now after you are finished doing this, you are just going to cut the ends where the loops are, and then you are going to cut it in half, which you will see me do once I gather everything up. So now that everything is together and now that everything is cut, the ball is basically finished, I am going to cut in the middle. Now you can see some are longer than others, and that's just simply because when I was flipping them over, sometimes my hand was making it longer than what I originally intended for in a measurement, but that's okay. Like I said, you can cut it. So we are just going to roll that over, and now we are going to get ready and cut our foundation, which is going to basically be a sweater. So as you can see me here doing, I am just cutting the front portion, which will be the opening, and I'm just cutting straight down. I'm not cutting to the point where I want it fitted, of course not, because this is just a sweater. I'm just cutting straight down. And I'm cutting in half because, like I said, this is the front portion. So because this is the front and it's open, your back is not going to be open. So we are just going to place basically this cutout on top of the fabric again on fold, but we are not going to cut down the middle, which you will see. And to identify what the back is from the front, the neckline is going to be shorter. Now I've cut my arms off camera, so now what I am going to do is just place everything on top so you guys can see the vision. And I'm going to make another disclaimer and method when it comes to this. You do not have to sew everything down right away. You can actually sew your fringe down before you sew everything together if that is easier for you, and or you can sew everything down and glue everything on top. But in this instance, we are going to sew it together and we are going to sew on top. And I just put the little fringe on top because I got so excited. I'm like, I gotta see what it looks like. So now, when it comes to sewing, what you are going to do is you are going to sew the shoulder. Now, I'm gonna show you where the shoulder is, and I'm gonna show you alongside the other line under your armpit where you should sew, so things can come together. You're waiting to sew everything together after you have already sewed and or glued the fringe on. That is perfectly fine. The only thing that will apply is leaving approximately 1/2 inch of allowance so you can have an easier path to sew, which I will show you later on. So see, this is my shoulder point here where I've just sewn. And I'm just going over it again one more time because I think it had missed a little spot, and we don't miss spots around here. So I had to put that thing through the sewing machine one more time. This is what it should look like when you're done. So if you're doing the first method of connecting everything and then sewing the fringe on top, this is me just showing you ahead of time. And if you're doing the second method where you are going to connect the fringe first and then connect everything, the same thing still applies. I'm just showing you what the armhole would and should look like connected. So you're just only going to sew down the side, but when you get ready to put that armhole in your sleeve, which I will show you again with the fringe on, you're going to place it in there and match those seams together, which is the sewing line. And once you place those seams on top of each other, you're literally just going to sew around in a circle. I like to put the pins in just to hold it, as you can see me doing here, but this is how I'm doing my arm. So we have raw edges, and because we have raw edges, either you can leave these clean cut and or sew and hem them at the bottom like I am getting ready to show you, which is literally we are going to fold over approximately 1/2 inch. And I'm going to show you 2 ways that you can do this hem. You can either fold it over once, look at that, clean, or you can fold it over twice. This is folding it over once, and this is folding it over twice. And the previous clip was to show you how it is supposed to look when you are finished sewing. So I'm going to show you again. You can fold it over once, and or you can fold it over twice and sew on top of that line. Now, after you are finished sewing, I put 2 inches in spaces between each line. So I just went ahead and I got excited. I already put the fringe down. So I did 2 inches in spaces. So you're going to get your chalk or your pen or whatever you need to show you where the lines are. And this was just easier for me so I can visually see, okay, this is evenly, this is proper, this is where the fringe is going to go, instead of kind of being all over the place. Now that I finished drawing my lines, we are going to get ready to sew. All you're going to do, if you're using glue, go ahead and do your thing. Glue it down. But if you're sewing, you are not going to take a whole bulk. You're just going to take just a little bit, okay, like just a little bit of cilantro. Place it on top and sew it down. This is how it should look. And obviously, some of it is uneven, but I'm going to cut down the middle ground where, right there in the middle, where it should be so it can be even. But all you have to do is literally put it on top. Take your time sewing and sew on top of those lines.
Gave you my heart and then you tore into a million pieces. Late night on the phone, swear I told you like a million secrets.
Now, we have gotten to the half portion for our sweater, and I'm just going to show you how you should sew to the top. And that's why I also said that the second method may be easier if you're sewing, which is putting that fringe on each panel before you connect them together. But either or, this method still applies even if you did that. You're just going to put your jacket for the top portion, this left panel here, which is in the front, like how I did on the sewing machine, just like that. And you're going to do it that way because you're going to get to the top and have this neckline here where you need to make kind of like an invisible overlay of the fringe. So instead of sewing the fringe on the outside, you're going to sew it on the inside just like this. And I'm going to show you what that's going to look like after you take this from your sewing machine and why you should do this, okay? Now, this is what it is going to look like. It's going to look invisible. You're not going to have to worry about that sewing line where it's sewed at. So when it comes to the top portions, like your shoulder and your neckline, which I just did the neckline, we're finna do the shoulder. You want to do an invisible overlay. And for the shoulder point, you're going to slide it under the sewing machine and do the same thing. You're not going to flip it over like how you did with the neckline, but you are just going to, as if you were just sewing it regularly on, but you are just going to place the fringe on top the opposite way. As you can see here, you see how most of the fringe is facing outward instead of downward, well, upward instead of downward. That's what you're going to do. And you're going to do that because this is what it's going to look like. If it's not easy for you to do that or you're having a tough time, that's okay. Take your time. Take your time. Now that that is done, we are going to do the same thing for the arms. We're going to make those lines. We are going to sew down each panel as I've displayed the previous clip beforehand so you can know how to. And I'm displaying this clip on the neckline as well because you know for your arm area, it's a top part. So for that area, you want to create a invisible point so the fringe could look like it's going down and you won't have that line. You're going to do the same thing. So as you can see me here doing, I'm just gliding my finger over top. So when you put and sew your fringe down, whether you glue it or sew it down, you're going to leave approximately ½ inch to the top so you can actually sew it and connect it to there. And you're going to do the same thing for the arm. You're going to do the same thing if you're connecting it ½ inch so it can be very easy for you and feasible to do it. And like I displayed and like I said earlier, for the arm area, you are going to just stuff that arm in there and sew around in a circle. All this fringe got me thinking of some spaghetti, fish, and salad. I don't know what it is, but it just got me thinking of some spaghetti. Okay? Put the arm through there. Take your time. because it can be very difficult, and literally sew around in the circle as I displayed earlier. Now you're just gonna sew around like I said, and ooh, I know I said like I said a lot. I don't mean to say it like I said, but I mean like I said. And sew it around and take your time. After you take it and unleash it from under the sewing machine, you're gonna comb that fringe down. You are gonna cut off all that excess, and this is what it should come out looking like. See you, honey buns, on HoneyBunTv next week. Mwah!